Have you ever thought about what could happen if Ethereum actually becomes deflationary? Not just temporarily, but consistently. It's already started in small bursts, especially after the major upgrade to the network. But imagine this being the new normal. Instead of creating more ETH over time, the network starts reducing it. Less ETH every day. That changes the entire game. Not just for crypto investors, but for developers, institutions, and even everyday users. The effects could ripple out far beyond what most people realize. So what really happens if Ethereum becomes deflationary? Let's count it down from 10 to 1, starting with the most basic but important effect. 10. The total ETH supply starts shrinking. Let's start with the numbers. As of now, Ethereum has around 120 million coins in circulation. But after the merge in 2022, Ethereum stopped relying on energy-intensive mining and switched to proof-of-stake. This drastically cut down new ETH issuance by about 90%. On top of that, Ethereum introduced EIP 1559 back in 2021, which burns a portion of transaction fees. So now, whenever people use the network, some ETH is destroyed. That means during high traffic periods, like NFT launches, meme coin surges, or market rallies, more ETH gets burned than created. For example, in early 2023 and again in early 2024, Ethereum became deflationary for several weeks in a row. This means more ETH disappeared than was issued. This isn't theoretical anymore. It's already happening in cycles. And if activity keeps rising while new issuance stays low, welcome to Tool Drax. ETH has panicked 2 weeks, which after the first part of a new network, Ethereum could regularly burn more than it mints. That's the recipe for a deflationary asset. 9. ETH could start acting like digital gold. Once Ethereum becomes deflationary consistently, it starts to behave more like a store of value, just like gold. With gold, we all know there's only so much of it. That's part of what makes it valuable. A shrinking ETH supply means it's getting scarcer every day, and scarcity often drives value. People might begin to treat ETH more seriously, not just as a tool to pay for gas fees or mint NFTs, but as a long-term investment. Something you want to hold on to because it becomes harder to get. This could make Ethereum a stronger rival to Bitcoin, which is already considered by many to be digital gold. But unlike Bitcoin, ETH also powers a massive network of decentralized apps. That gives it utility and scarcity at the same time. 8. Network activity starts to matter more than mining. In Bitcoin, the only way to increase scarcity is by having the mining rewards every few years. In Ethereum, scarcity now depends on how much the network is being used. The more people use Ethereum for smart contracts, DeFi, NFTs, or just sending ETH around, the more ETH gets burned. That flips the traditional model upside down. Ethereum's value could become directly tied to its popularity. Imagine if a social network stock became more valuable just because more people were posting. That's kind of what's happening here. Every time someone interacts with Ethereum, a little ETH disappears forever. So, as adoption grows, the supply shrinks faster. And that means Ethereum isn't just deflationary, it's activity-driven deflationary. That's a powerful combination. 7. Long-term holders get rewarded. If you're someone who likes to buy and hold, deflation is your best friend. Think about it. As the total supply drops, your piece of the pie becomes more valuable, without you doing anything. That's especially true if demand stays steady or increases. In a deflationary system, simply holding ETH could lead to long-term gains. You don't need to stake it, trade it, or use fancy strategies. This kind of setup encourages saving, not spending. And while that may not sound great for day-to-day transactions, it's fantastic for long-term value. It's the opposite of inflation, where your money buys less over time. With deflation, your ETH could actually buy more in the future, especially if Ethereum keeps growing as a platform. 6. Staking could become more attractive. Right now, staking ETH gives you a return, something around 3 to 5% annually, depending on the conditions. That's already better than most traditional savings accounts. But if ETH becomes deflationary, your staking rewards might come with an extra bonus: value appreciation. Let's say you stake 10 ETH and you earn 0.4 ETH in a year. If ETH's price also goes up because it's deflationary, that 0.4 ETH isn't just more ETH. It's worth more dollars too. That double effect could make staking even more appealing for regular users and institutions, especially for big investors who don't want to risk trading but still want exposure to crypto growth. 5. More institutional interest in ETH. This brings us to a key point. Institutions love predictable, scarce assets. It's why they buy real estate, stocks, and increasingly Bitcoin. If Ethereum becomes reliably deflationary, it might finally hit the sweet spot for big investors. Not just because it's scarce, but because it's scarce and useful. With Ethereum powering thousands of decentralized apps, from stablecoins like USDC and DAI to DeFi protocols like Aave and Uniswap, there's a real-world use case, and institutions are noticing. A deflationary ETH gives them more confidence. It suggests that ETH isn't going to be diluted over time, and that the ecosystem has strong fundamentals. That could bring in more ETFs, mutual funds, and even pension fund exposure over time. We're already seeing early signs with the approval of ETH futures ETFs. A deflationary Ethereum might just be the final push institutions need to go all in. 4. Developers may change how they build. Here's something most people miss. Developers have to think about the cost of gas fees when building apps. If ETH becomes deflationary and its price rises, gas fees could become more expensive in dollar terms, even if they stay the same in ETH. That might push developers to focus more on scaling solutions like Layer 2 networks, Arbitrum, Optimism, Base, and others. These networks process transactions faster and cheaper, helping Ethereum handle more users without high fees. A deflationary ETH could actually drive innovation by forcing developers to build more efficient, affordable systems. It could also push some projects to launch directly on Layer 2 networks instead of mainnet Ethereum. 3. Layer 2 networks become even more important. Layer 2 solutions are already growing fast, but a deflationary Ethereum could accelerate this shift. Why? Because as ETH becomes more scarce and valuable, the cost of using Ethereum might increase, especially for regular users. That pushes people toward cheaper, faster networks that still settle on Ethereum eventually. In other words, Ethereum might become the secure base layer, while most of the activity shifts to Layer 2s. This keeps Ethereum scalable and avoids network congestion. It's kind of like having a slow but ultra-secure vault and building faster cash registers on top. A deflationary ETH supports this design. It rewards efficient use of the base layer and encourages developers to be thoughtful about how they use block space. 2. ETH could eventually flip Bitcoin in market cap. This one's controversial, but let's be honest, it's not impossible. Bitcoin is the king of crypto, but its biggest strength is scarcity. Now, Ethereum is gaining that strength too, while also doing more. If ETH consistently burns more than it creates, and if usage keeps growing, its value could rise faster than Bitcoin's. Right now, Bitcoin's market cap is still larger than Ethereum's, almost double. ETH is catching up. It already leads in total transactions, active wallets, and number of developers. If Ethereum becomes the go-to platform and a deflationary asset, it might eventually challenge Bitcoin for the top spot. Of course, that would take time, and it depends on market sentiment, regulation, and tech upgrades. But a deflationary ETH is one of the key ingredients that could make this possible. 1. Ethereum becomes a multi-use, long-term store of value. This is where it all comes together. If ETH becomes deflationary, it's no longer just a utility token. It's not just gas for smart contracts or NFTs. It becomes something bigger, a multi-purpose asset that you can use and hold. That's powerful. Imagine an asset that you can use to access apps, borrow money, stake for rewards, and also store value for the long haul. That's not just crypto, it's the future of digital finance. Ethereum's shift to deflation, if it becomes long-term, could be the thing that transforms it from a tech project into a foundational financial asset. Something people trust, something they hold for years, something they use daily. And that changes everything, from how people build apps to how people save and invest. A deflationary Ethereum is more than just a supply number going down. It's a signal, a shift in how the entire ecosystem works. If you found this video helpful and want to see more content like this, make sure you hit that like button, share it with a friend, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. That way you won't miss out on deep, easy to understand breakdowns of what's happening in crypto. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.